While some cars excel in performance and comfort, others seem to miss the mark entirely, offering sluggish engines, cramped interiors, and suspensions that feel like punishment. Whether they were poorly designed or simply built on the cheap, these cars often left drivers frustrated and sore at the end of each drive. Here are 12 of the weakest, most uncomfortable cars that made driving an unbearable experience.
Dear viewer, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for your support.
Number 12. The Henry J. Standard, produced by the Kaiser Frazer Corporation, was introduced as an affordable, no-frills, compact car meant to attract post-war consumers on a budget. Although the concept was noble, delivering a basic car that nearly anyone could afford, it ended up as a poorly executed vehicle with major design oversights, underwhelming performance, and minimal creature comforts. Its combination of cost-cutting compromises and outdated engineering earned it a reputation as one of the more disappointing cars of the 1950s. The Henry J had a simple utilitarian design, featuring rounded fenders, a stubby hood, and small proportions. The car lacked any real flair, making it unattractive compared to more stylish competitors from Ford or Chevrolet. One glaring issue was the absence of a trunk lid. Access to the trunk space required folding the rear seats, an odd and inconvenient feature that frustrated owners. Inside, the Henry J was extremely Spartan. To save costs, it came with thin bench seats covered in basic fabric that offered little comfort. There were no armrests, glove compartments, or interior frills, and the dashboard was plain, with minimal instrumentation. Buyers quickly realized that the Henry J was more suited for short drives rather than long journeys. The Henry J was powered by either a 2.2-liter four-cylinder engine or an optional 2.6-liter inline-six. Both engines were underpowered and produced sluggish acceleration, especially when compared to similarly priced models from larger automakers. Its top speed was only about 65 miles per hour, making it ill-suited for highway driving as speeds increased in the post-war era. Equipped with a 3-speed manual transmission, the car was known for rough gear shifts. The combination of a weak engine and inefficient gearing resulted in poor acceleration, making it feel slow and unresponsive on the road. The cost-cutting measures meant that the car was cheaply built, with thin sheet metal that made it prone to dents and rust. Many of the components were prone to early failure, including the brakes and electrical systems. Owners complained about excessive road noise due to the lack of sound insulation, making the driving experience uncomfortable. The lightweight, narrow design gave the car poor stability. It had a tendency to wobble at higher speeds, and cornering was a challenge due to understeer and body roll. While the Henry J was designed to offer better fuel economy than larger American cars, the trade-off was a lack of space and practicality. The absence of a proper trunk lid made loading cargo inconvenient, while the small cabin felt cramped for families, limiting its appeal to budget-conscious buyers. When the Henry J was first introduced, it was marketed as a solution for those who needed an inexpensive car with minimal upkeep. However, word quickly spread about the car's many compromises, and consumers opted for slightly more expensive but better equipped vehicles from Ford, Chevrolet, or Plymouth. Kaiser attempted to boost sales by rebadging the car as the Allstate, sold through Sears department stores, but the strategy failed to generate enough interest. Today, the Henry J is remembered as a well-intentioned but poorly executed idea. Its unconventional design choices, like the lack of a trunk lid, ended up alienating consumers rather than attracting them. The car's sluggish performance, flimsy construction, and absence of comfort features ensured it would never become a classic in the same way as other 1950s cars. As Kaiser Frazer faded from the automotive landscape, the Henry J became a curious footnote in American automotive history, representing the difficulties of balancing affordability with practicality and design. The 1953 Henry J Standard exemplified the pitfalls of extreme cost-cutting in automotive design. While it aimed to provide affordable transportation for a post-war audience, it ended up being too basic and poorly designed to compete with the more refined offerings from other automakers. With sluggish performance, awkward design choices, and minimal features, it failed to leave a lasting mark, fading quickly from the market and from memory. Number 11. The 1960 Chevrolet Corvair 500 was an ambitious and innovative vehicle, representing GM's attempt to introduce a compact car with a rear-engine design, similar to European cars like the Volkswagen Beetle. However, despite its unconventional design, the Corvair 500 was plagued by serious handling problems, especially due to its rear-engine layout and swing-axle suspension. The car was marketed as an affordable, practical option, but it lacked refinement, and the Spartan interior made it feel bare bones. Later, the Corvair became infamous for safety concerns, highlighted by Ralph Nader's book, Unsafe at Any Speed. The Corvair was smaller and sleeker than most American cars of the time, with a minimalist and modern appearance. Its unibody construction and lack of a traditional grille gave it a clean, streamlined look. However, the 500 trim was the most basic version, with limited exterior chrome and few decorative features, giving it an underwhelming visual appeal compared to competitors like the Ford Falcon. The Corvair 500 had a Spartan interior, with bare-bones seating and minimal comfort features. It lacked extras like padded dashboards, armrests, or quality materials that consumers had come to expect, even in affordable models. Rear seating was cramped, and with limited soundproofing, the cabin was noisy due to engine vibrations filtering into the passenger area. The Corvair was powered by a 2.3-liter air-cooled flat-six engine mounted at the rear, which was unconventional for American cars. This layout freed up space in the front trunk, but came at the cost of poor weight distribution, a significant contributor to its handling problems. While the engine offered smooth acceleration for a small car, it wasn't powerful enough to satisfy drivers expecting better performance from an American vehicle. The rear engine layout, combined with swing-axle rear suspension, made the Corvair prone to oversteer, the rear of the car swinging out during cornering. Drivers found it difficult to control, especially at higher speeds or on wet surfaces. Unlike other vehicles with rear-heavy designs, the Corvair lacked a front anti-roll bar in early models, exacerbating handling issues and making the car feel unstable, especially during sudden maneuvers. The Corvair's air-cooled engine was prone to overheating, and owners frequently complained about oil leaks and the engine burning oil. Additionally, the engine components were not as reliable as traditional water-cooled engines, requiring more frequent repairs. The swing-axle suspension design caused the wheels to tuck under the car during sharp turns, leading to rollovers. This flaw became a critical safety concern, as the car was less forgiving of steering mistakes compared to other compact cars. Chevrolet's recommendation to underinflate the front tires and overinflate the rear to improve handling only created further confusion for owners, increasing the risk of accidents. The Corvair gained notoriety after consumer advocate Ralph Nader criticized it heavily in his 1965 book, Unsafe at Any Speed. He pointed out that the car's design flaws made it dangerous, leading to public distrust of the vehicle and significant damage to Chevrolet's reputation. While the Corvair offered better fuel economy than larger American sedans, its practicality was compromised by the rear engine design. The front trunk was small, and with the engine taking up rear space, cargo capacity was limited. The rear seat also provided minimal legroom, making the Corvair less practical for families despite being marketed as a compact family car. Upon release, the Corvair generated a lot of excitement due to its innovative design and compact size. Early buyers appreciated its European-inspired styling and smaller footprint compared to typical American sedans. However, as handling issues and mechanical problems became apparent, sales began to decline. Competitors like the Ford Falcon and Plymouth Valiant offered more traditional front-engine layouts, which consumers found easier to handle and more reliable. The Corvair 500's poor handling and mechanical problems, combined with Ralph Nader's public criticism, ensured that it became one of the most controversial cars in American history. Though Chevrolet made design improvements in later years, like upgrading the suspension, the damage to the Corvair's reputation was irreversible. Today, the 1960 Corvair is remembered as both an ambitious experiment and a cautionary tale about the dangers of compromising safety for innovation. It stands as an example of how poor design choices can overshadow even the most well-intentioned automotive projects. The 1960 Chevrolet Corvair 500 was a bold departure from traditional American cars, with its rear-engine layout and compact design. However, handling issues, mechanical faults, and a sparse interior made it feel impractical and unsafe. Its legacy was further marred by Ralph Nader's criticism. Number 10. The 1955 Willie's Arrow was an attempt by Willys Overland to compete in the growing market for compact cars. Introduced initially in 1952, the Arrow aimed to offer a smaller, economical vehicle to consumers at a time when large American sedans dominated the market. By 1955, however, the model was outdated, with weak engines and an overall design that felt uninspired compared to newer competitors. Additionally, the stiff, springy seats made the driving experience uncomfortable, further alienating buyers. Willys' limited resources and inability to keep pace with other automakers sealed the Arrow's fate as a market flop. The 1955 Arrow had relatively simple, boxy styling that lacked the flash and flair of many other mid-1950s cars. While its compact size was supposed to appeal to budget-conscious buyers, it instead appeared bland and unremarkable compared to more stylish competitors like the Ford Fairlane or Chevy Bel Air. Willys gave the Arrow minor design updates, but these were largely cosmetic and failed to spark much enthusiasm. The lack of tail fins or other popular design elements of the time made it feel out of step with the latest automotive trends. One of the most frequent complaints about the Arrow was the uncomfortable seats. They were stiff and springy, offering little padding or support, making long drives tiring. While other manufacturers focused on plush interiors with improved ergonomics, Willys fell short in this area. The cabin was simple, almost to a fault. Basic trim materials and a lack of advanced features gave the interior a utilitarian feel that didn't meet consumer expectations for comfort, even in a budget vehicle. The Arrow was powered by a flathead inline-6 or inline-4 engine, but both options were underpowered for the car's size. Even with the modest weight of the Arrow, the engine struggled to provide adequate acceleration, making it feel sluggish in city driving and underwhelming on highways. Compounding the engine's lack of power, the transmission options, either a 3-speed manual or an optional automatic, were not particularly smooth, leading to a clunky driving experience. While the Arrow did offer better fuel economy than larger sedans, the poor performance meant buyers didn't feel they were getting a good deal. With sluggish acceleration and a weak top end, the Arrow could hardly be considered an enjoyable or practical car for highway driving. The suspension setup was rudimentary, with leaf springs in the rear. While this design kept costs down, it resulted in a bouncy, harsh ride on rough roads. Competitors were beginning to introduce more refined suspension systems, making the Arrow feel dated in comparison. On the plus side, the compact size of the car made it easy to park and maneuver in tight spaces, which appealed to urban buyers. However, limited sales networks and Willys' weak brand recognition meant that even this advantage did not translate into strong sales. The Arrow initially showed promise when it debuted, but by 1955, the design was old-fashioned and unable to compete with newer compacts from bigger manufacturers. Rivals like the Chevrolet 150/210 series and Ford Custom line were more appealing to buyers with better styling, performance, and comfort. The Arrow was also hampered by the reputation of Willys as primarily a maker of Jeeps. Consumers associated the brand with rugged off-road vehicles, not compact sedans, which made the Arrow a tough sell in a market dominated by well-known car brands. Willys lacked the distribution and marketing power of the big three automakers, Ford, GM, and Chrysler. Buyers had limited access to dealerships, and those who purchased the Arrow often found it difficult to get parts or service, further souring the ownership experience. The Arrow was one of Willys Overland's last attempts to break into the passenger car market before the company was acquired by Kaiser Motors in 1953, which later merged with AMC. Production of the Arrow continued under Kaiser in South America, where it found modest success, but in the U.S. market, it was a commercial failure. Today, the 1955 Willys Arrow is a forgotten relic of the post-war compact car movement, remembered more as an interesting oddity than a successful vehicle. Collectors who seek out the Arrow today often do so for its novelty, not because of any standout features or performance. The 1955 Willie Arrow was a car with good intentions, compact, affordable, and economical. Unfortunately, it suffered from weak engines, a dated design, uncomfortable seats, and poor performance, making it an unappealing choice for buyers. Willie's inability to keep up with changing trends in the automotive industry, along with its limited dealer network, further doomed the Arrow to obscurity. While it remains a niche collectible today, the Arrow serves as a reminder of how tough competition in the compact car market was during the 1950s, and how far behind Willie's fell in meeting consumer expectations. Number 9. The 1958 Renault Doofen was designed as a compact, affordable city car that would appeal to the growing post-war middle class. While it was initially marketed as a stylish and economical alternative to larger American sedans, it quickly earned a reputation for being underpowered, noisy, and unreliable. With just 32 horsepower, the Doofen struggled to keep pace with traffic, and its noisy ride made it unpleasant to drive. Though Renault sold millions worldwide, including in the US, the Doofen became a symbol of poor performance and bad engineering, especially in American markets. The Doofen's compact, rounded body was intended to be elegant and modern, with a design that stood out compared to the bulky American cars of the 1950s. However, to some buyers, the small, bulbous shape made it look more like a toy than a serious automobile. While the car's small size helped with parking and city driving, it made it feel cramped inside, particularly for American drivers accustomed to larger vehicles. Renault designed the interior to be minimalist to keep costs down. However, this came at the expense of comfort and refinement. The seats were thin and offered little support, while the dashboard featured bare-bones controls with limited instrumentation. Noise insulation was practically non-existent, meaning that engine and road noise constantly invaded the cabin, making long drives exhausting. The 1958 Doofen was equipped with an 845 cubic centimeter inline-4 engine that produced just 32 horsepower. This was sufficient for European city driving, but woefully inadequate for American roads. The Doofen struggled with acceleration, taking nearly 30 seconds to reach 60 miles per hour, if it could reach that speed at all. On highways, it was a hazard, as merging and overtaking were nearly impossible. The car's 3-speed manual transmission was not well matched to the underpowered engine, resulting in sluggish shifts and poor performance. With a top speed of around 65 miles per hour, the Doofen was barely capable of highway driving. It struggled on inclines, requiring drivers to downshift frequently, making it impractical for any terrain with hills or mountains. While the car's lightweight design made it nimble at low speeds, it came at the expense of stability. The soft suspension and narrow tires resulted in poor cornering performance, making the car feel unstable at higher speeds. The rear engine layout contributed to the car's tendency to oversteer, which could catch drivers off guard during sharp turns. The Doofen's simple suspension system was designed for smooth European roads, but it performed poorly on rougher American streets. Road imperfections were felt throughout the cabin, and combined with engine noise made for an unpleasant driving experience. One of the Doofen's biggest flaws was its poor reliability. Owners reported frequent mechanical issues, including overheating problems and poor electrical systems. The engine's design was fragile, requiring careful maintenance that many American buyers found frustrating. The Doofen was notorious for corrosion problems, with body panels that rusted quickly, especially in wet or salty climates. Poor quality materials and thin metal further contributed to the car's rapid deterioration. Renault's limited dealer network in the US made it difficult for owners to get parts or service. Many American mechanics were unfamiliar with the car's design, leading to poor repairs and further reliability issues. Despite its flaws, Renault initially found success with the Doofen, selling nearly 2 million units worldwide. In the US, it appealed to urban buyers looking for a cheap and efficient car. However, as mechanical issues and poor performance became apparent, sales quickly plummeted, and the Doofen's reputation soured. The Doofen's closest competitor was the Volkswagen Beetle, which had a similar size and layout. However, the Beetle was more reliable, durable, and fun to drive, giving it a significant edge over the Doofen. By comparison, the Doofen felt like a poorly executed attempt at an economy car. The 1958 Renault Doofen was an underpowered, noisy, and unreliable car that failed to live up to its promise of affordable, efficient transportation. While it found some early success, its 32-horsepower engine, unstable handling, and frequent mechanical issues made it a nightmare for owners. Today, the Doofen is regarded as an example of how not to design and market a car, particularly in the competitive American market of the 1950s. Number 8, the 1959 Volkswagen Beetle is often celebrated for its iconic design and global impact. But it wasn't without flaws. While its charm, reliability, and affordability earned it a devoted following, the Beetle also suffered from thin, uncomfortable seats, a noisy interior, and underwhelming engine performance, especially by American standards. Despite being well-engineered for simplicity and reliability, these shortcomings made it far from ideal for long trips or fast highways in the US, where buyers typically expected more space, comfort, and power. The Beetle's curved, insect-like silhouette was instantly recognizable. Although endearing to many, it was seen by others as dated or overly simplistic, with minimal updates to its look throughout the 1950s. While the compact design made it easy to park and maneuver in cities, the car looked small and out of place compared to the massive American sedans of the era. The cabin was extremely Spartan, with thin, flat seats that provided little support. These seats made longer drives uncomfortable, especially for American consumers who were used to the plush interiors of Detroit-made cars. There were bare-bones controls on the dashboard, with only the essentials: speedometer, fuel gauge, and a couple of knobs, adding to the car's reputation as a no-frills vehicle. The 1.2-liter flat-4 engine produced 36 horsepower, which was enough for urban driving, but completely inadequate for American highways. The Beetle struggled to reach highway speeds, with a top speed of around 70 miles per hour. If conditions were ideal, acceleration was sluggish, taking over 30 seconds to reach 60 miles per hour, making merging into fast-moving traffic a nerve-wracking experience. The Beetle's 4-speed manual gearbox was reliable, but required frequent shifting to compensate for the engine's lack of power. Driving it on hilly roads meant constantly downshifting, which could frustrate drivers accustomed to more powerful American engines. Thanks to its lightweight construction and rear-engine layout, the Beetle handled surprisingly well at low speeds and in tight urban spaces. However, on highways, the car felt unstable and vulnerable to crosswinds, a problem exacerbated by its small size and light body. Road noise and engine sounds easily penetrated the cabin, making conversations difficult at higher speeds. The air-cooled engine, though robust, emitted a distinct droning sound that many drivers found tiring over long trips. The Beetle's torsion bar suspension provided decent handling, but resulted in a stiff ride. Every bump and pothole on the road could be felt inside the car, further diminishing its appeal for long-distance drives. The Beetle gained a reputation for being reliable and easy to maintain, which helped build its cult following. However, the low power output meant that it struggled with heavy loads or hilly terrain, making it impractical for some American drivers. The Beetle's simple mechanical design made it easy to repair, with parts that were widely available and inexpensive. However, this simplicity came at the cost of convenience and amenities. Features like air conditioning, power steering, or automatic transmissions were not available. While the Beetle was appreciated for its affordability and fuel efficiency, it was a cultural oddity in the US, where bigger cars with powerful V8 engines dominated the market. Many American drivers viewed the Beetle as a toy car that lacked the comfort and performance they expected. As US automakers began to produce their own compact cars, such as the Chevrolet Corvair, the Beetle faced stiff competition. Although the Beetle offered better reliability, it couldn't match the power, space, or amenities of its American rivals. Despite its flaws, the 1959 Beetle left an indelible mark on automotive history. It represented a shift towards smaller, more efficient vehicles and helped pave the way for future compact cars in the US. However, the car's lack of comfort, power, and refinement meant that it was far from ideal for American highways and consumer preferences at the time. Its quirky design and simplicity ultimately gave it a cult following, and many of the Beetle's shortcomings became part of its charm. Still, for those who expected modern amenities and performance, the Beetle fell short, Noisy, slow, and uncomfortable, it was a practical choice, but not necessarily an enjoyable one. The 1959 Volkswagen Beetle was an iconic, reliable, and affordable car, but it wasn't without its downsides. Its thin seats, noisy cabin, and weak engine made it a poor fit for the American market, where drivers valued comfort and performance. While it found a loyal fan base, it wasn't the car for everyone. Quirky, endearing, but undeniably flawed, the Beetle exemplified both the best and worst of European imports in the 1950s. Number 7, the 1967 AMC Rambler American was intended to be a compact, affordable car aimed at budget-conscious buyers, but it failed to stand out in a competitive market. The hard, uncomfortable seats and underwhelming engine options left drivers dissatisfied, especially as consumer expectations for comfort and performance increased during the late 1960s. Though it was priced affordably, the car's basic design, uninspired styling, and lack of excitement hindered its appeal. By 1967, the Rambler American's design was dated and plain compared to other compact cars on the market, such as the Ford Falcon or Chevy Nova. The body featured bland, boxy lines with little ornamentation, making it look more functional than fashionable. AMC's attempts to market it as economical fell flat with buyers who wanted both affordability and style. The seats were hard and unsupportive, causing discomfort during long drives. AMC's cost-cutting approach was evident in the thin seat padding and the use of low-quality materials throughout the cabin. The interior layout was extremely basic, with minimal dashboard features and controls, reinforcing the car's no-frills image. This simplicity, while practical, made it feel cheap and out of place as consumers sought more refined vehicles. The base engine was a 3.3-liter inline-six, producing around 128 horsepower, which was barely adequate for a car of its size. AMC offered a V8 option, but even the 4.7-liter 290 cubic inch V8 felt sluggish due to the car's weight distribution and outdated engineering. Compared to other compacts with lively engines, the Rambler American was noticeably underpowered and slow off the line. Acceleration from 0 to 60 miles per hour took nearly 15 seconds in the base model, frustrating drivers who expected quicker performance. Buyers could choose between a 3-speed manual or a 3-speed automatic transmission. The manual transmission felt clunky and outdated, while the automatic lacked smoothness, making driving the car a chore rather than a pleasure. The suspension was tuned for durability rather than comfort, resulting in a rough ride that transmitted every bump and crack in the road. This stiffness, combined with the uncomfortable seats, made long drives an unpleasant experience. The steering was vague and unresponsive, leading to a disconnected driving experience. On winding roads, the car felt awkward to maneuver, and body roll was noticeable even during moderate turns. While the Rambler American offered decent fuel economy, it came at the expense of power and comfort. This trade-off made the car less appealing to drivers who wanted more than just a fuel-efficient vehicle. Competing compact cars like the Ford Falcon, Chevrolet Nova, and Plymouth Valiant offered better styling, performance, and comfort at similar price points. Buyers found the Rambler American to be too plain and uninspiring, even for a budget vehicle. By 1967, AMC was struggling to maintain relevance as other manufacturers introduced newer, more exciting compacts. The Rambler American, despite its practical appeal, failed to excite younger buyers or attract much attention. While the 1967 AMC Rambler American had some positive aspects, such as affordability and reliability, it ultimately failed to make a lasting impact. Its hard seats, lackluster engine options, and uninspired styling left it overshadowed by more exciting and comfortable compact cars of the era. The Rambler American was one of the last models produced under the Rambler name, marking the end of an era for AMC's attempt at producing practical economy cars. The 1967 AMC Rambler American is remembered as a practical but uninspiring budget car. Its uncomfortable seats, weak engines, and outdated styling frustrated drivers, especially as the automotive industry moved toward more exciting, comfortable, and performance-oriented vehicles. While it appealed to some buyers for its simplicity and low maintenance, The Rambler American ultimately became a symbol of AMC's struggle to keep up with industry trends. Number 6, the 1965 Simca 1000, imported from France and sold in the US, was a small rear-engine sedan that tried to compete in the burgeoning economy car segment. While it was affordable, the car was plagued by an underpowered engine, producing only 37 horsepower, and poor ergonomics that made driving an uncomfortable experience. Its attempt to offer European simplicity failed to resonate with American consumers, who found the car cramped, frustrating to drive, and lacking in refinement. The Simca 1000 featured a compact, boxy shape with little ornamentation. While practical, it lacked the charm and style of other small imports, such as the Volkswagen Beetle. Its tiny dimensions made it look more like a toy than a serious vehicle for daily use. The rear engine layout, while innovative, contributed to a design that many Americans found peculiar. The proportions of the car, short nose, long rear overhang, made it look odd compared to the more conventional styling of compact US cars. The seats were hard, poorly padded, and uncomfortable, making long drives a chore. The driving position was awkward, with pedals and controls poorly placed for comfort. Many drivers complained about the cramped footwell, which made it hard to operate the clutch smoothly. The dashboard was minimalistic to a fault, with cheap materials and a sparse layout that looked unfinished. While simplicity was acceptable in Europe, American drivers expected more features, even in economy cars. The Simca 1000 was powered by a 944 cubic centimeter four-cylinder engine, producing just 37 horsepower. Acceleration was sluggish, and the car struggled to keep up with traffic, especially on highways. 0 to 60 mile-per-hour times were agonizingly slow, taking nearly 30 seconds. The lack of power made even simple driving maneuvers, like merging or passing, feel stressful. The 4-speed manual transmission was not well tuned for American driving conditions. Shifts were clunky, and the car's weak engine meant drivers had to work hard to maintain momentum. The rear-engine, rear-wheel drive layout gave the car poor weight distribution, leading to tail-happy handling and unpredictable behavior on wet roads. The Simca 1000's rear-engine setup resulted in oversteer, especially at higher speeds, making it tricky to handle for drivers accustomed to front-engine vehicles. The narrow tires didn't provide much grip, and the suspension was not well suited for American roads. Body roll was excessive, and cornering felt unsafe. On top of that, crosswinds on highways caused the car to wander, making long trips exhausting for the driver. The car's simple suspension system delivered a rough ride, transmitting every bump and pothole directly into the cabin. Combined with the uncomfortable seats, this made driving the Simca 1000 a tiring experience. In the US market, the Simca 1000 faced tough competition from other affordable imports, such as the Volkswagen Beetle and Fiat 500, as well as domestic compacts like the Ford Falcon and Chevrolet Corvair. While it was cheaper than many American cars, the lack of power, poor ergonomics, and awkward styling made it a hard sell. Consumers preferred the Beetle's charm and reliability over the Simca's bare-bones approach. Chrysler, which imported the Simca under a partnership, struggled to provide adequate support and service for the car. Limited parts availability and unfamiliarity with French engineering frustrated owners. While the engine was relatively simple, the car suffered from cooling problems, especially in warm climates. Overheating was a common issue, as the rear engine layout made it hard to cool the engine effectively. Electrical issues were also frequent, with wiring problems causing lights and accessories to fail. The Simca 1000 was prone to rust, particularly in the floorboards and wheel wells. In areas with salted roads, rust could appear within just a few years of ownership. The 1965 Simca 1000 failed to make a significant impact in the US market. Its poor ergonomics, underpowered engine, and awkward handling ensured that it remained a niche vehicle, quickly forgotten by most buyers. It highlighted the challenges of importing small European cars to the US, where comfort, power, and reliability were valued more than simplicity and fuel economy. While it enjoyed some success in Europe, the Simca 1000 was a flop in America and is remembered as a quirky but frustrating experiment in the automotive market. The 1965 Simca 1000 is a reminder that not all small cars are created equal. Its 37 horsepower engine made it painfully slow, and its uncomfortable seats and awkward driving position made it a car few Americans could love. Though it offered good fuel economy, it wasn't enough to compensate for its flaws. As a result, the Sima 1000 is remembered as a failed import, a car that simply didn't fit the needs or expectations of US drivers. Number 5. The 1969 Volkswagen Type 3, available in both sedan, notchback, and fastback body styles, aimed to provide an alternative to the iconic Beetle by offering a bit more space and comfort. However, despite its potential, the Type 3 was plagued by a small, underpowered engine and a distinct lack of refinement, which led to a disappointing driving experience. The Type 3's design was relatively conventional for the time, featuring a boxy shape that didn't particularly stand out in the compact car market. While it had a modern look compared to the Beetle, it lacked the character and charm that made the latter so beloved. The sedan and fastback variants had similar styling cues, but many critics found the overall design to be rather bland and unremarkable. Inside, the Type 3 offered a Spartan dashboard with minimal instrumentation, which was a common trait in many Volkswagens of the era. The materials used were of average quality, and the interior design lacked the sophistication and comfort found in competing models. It felt utilitarian, which might not appeal to buyers looking for more comfort in their vehicles. The Type 3 was powered by a 1.5-liter flat-4 engine, producing only 50 horsepower. This was notably less than many competitors, leading to sluggish acceleration and a general feeling of underperformance. Drivers often found themselves frustrated with the Type 3's inability to keep pace with traffic, particularly on highways or during passing maneuvers. The engine was mated to a 4-speed manual transmission, which, while straightforward, did not help improve performance. The lack of low-end torque meant that drivers often had to downshift to maintain speed, particularly on inclines. One of the most significant drawbacks of the Type 3 was its lack of soundproofing. Road noise and engine sounds permeated the cabin, creating an unpleasant driving experience. Passengers often found it hard to hold a conversation over the din of wind and mechanical noise. The suspension was set up to provide a reasonably comfortable ride, but the lack of insulation from road noise detracted from overall comfort. The Type 3 featured a rear engine layout, similar to the Beetle, which offered some unique handling characteristics. While it was stable at low speeds, the car could feel light and skittish at higher velocities, making it less confidence-inspiring for spirited driving. Many drivers noted that the steering felt vague, contributing to a disconnected driving experience. The Type 3 entered a competitive market dominated by compact cars that offered better performance and comfort. Cars like the Ford Mustang, Chevrolet Nova, and Datsun 510 provided more power and refinement, making it difficult for the Type 3 to find its niche. Despite being marketed as a practical alternative to the Beetle, the Type 3's performance shortcomings and lack of features left many consumers unimpressed. While some buyers appreciated the Type 3's quirky heritage as part of the Volkswagen family, its overall package failed to resonate with the broader market. As a result, sales did not meet expectations, leading to a lack of longevity for the model in the US market. The 1969 Volkswagen Type 3 has since become a curiosity among classic car enthusiasts, appreciated for its unique place in Volkswagen's history. However, its underpowered engine, lack of soundproofing, and overall blandness prevented it from becoming a beloved classic like the Beetle. As a model that strived to offer more than what the Beetle could, it ultimately fell short, leaving a legacy of unfulfilled potential. The 1969 Volkswagen Type 3 serves as a reminder that a car's appeal goes beyond just being part of a famous brand. Its small, underpowered engine and lack of soundproofing led to an uninspiring driving experience that didn't resonate with consumers. Despite its potential, the Type 3 failed to capture the hearts of American drivers, making it a footnote in the history of compact cars rather than the standout Volkswagen it aspired to be. Number 4. The 1961 Studebaker Lark was part of Studebaker's compact car lineup, designed to compete with the burgeoning market of smaller, more economical vehicles. While it had its share of unique styling and features, the Lark fell short in terms of ride comfort, performance, and overall quality. The Lark featured a distinctive design, with a clean, straightforward look that was somewhat appealing. However, many felt that it lacked the flair and character of its contemporaries. Despite its compact dimensions, the Lark's styling was often seen as dated, particularly in the 1950s face of more modern designs from rival automakers. Inside, the Lark boasted a practical layout, but the materials and finishes were generally considered subpar for the price point. The dashboard and controls lacked the refinement and innovation seen in competitors, making it feel more utilitarian than desirable. Stiff seats contributed to an uncomfortable seating experience, detracting from long-distance driving enjoyment. The Lark was offered with several engine choices, including a 170 cubic inch inline-six and a 259 cubic inch V8. While the V8 provided some extra power, both engines were often criticized for their lackluster performance and responsiveness. Acceleration was sluggish, and the Lark struggled to compete with rival compact cars that offered more powerful engine options. The Lark came with a standard 3-speed manual transmission or an optional automatic. While these transmissions were adequate, they did not enhance the driving experience, contributing to the overall feeling of underperformance. One of the most significant drawbacks of the Lark was its bumpy ride. The suspension setup struggled to absorb road imperfections, leading to a jarring experience for passengers. Many drivers noted that the car felt harsh over bumps, which detracted from its appeal as a practical family vehicle. Handling was generally uninspired, with vague steering and a tendency to wander at higher speeds. While it was stable for everyday driving, the Lark didn't instill confidence during more spirited maneuvers, which disappointed driving enthusiasts. When compared to compact rivals like the Chevrolet Nova and Ford Falcon, the Lark struggled to gain traction in the market. These competitors offered better performance, more comfortable rides, and modern styling that appealed to a broader audience. The Lark's overall package felt outdated and less competitive, contributing to its lack of popularity. While some consumers appreciated the Lark's affordability and unique design, it failed to capture the attention of mainstream buyers. As a result, sales were disappointing, leading to a decline in Studebaker's market share. The build quality of the Lark was often criticized, with reports of poor fit and finish. Issues such as rust and mechanical failures were not uncommon, leading to a reputation for unreliability. While parts were generally available, owners faced challenges with the durability of certain components, further diminishing the Lark's appeal as a long-term investment. While routine maintenance was straightforward, the Lark's reputation for quality issues meant that owners often faced unexpected repairs, which could become a burden over time. The Lark's fuel economy was average for its class, but given its performance shortcomings, many drivers felt it was an unsatisfactory trade-off. The lack of power and responsiveness made driving less enjoyable, overshadowing any potential savings at the pump. The 1961 Studebaker Lark remains a footnote in automotive history, often remembered for its unique approach to compact design. However, its bumpy ride, stiff seats, and weak engine options prevented it from becoming a beloved classic. As Studebaker struggled to compete in an evolving market, the Lark symbolized the challenges the brand faced in the 1960s. The 1961 Studebaker Lark serves as a reminder that unique design and affordability aren't always enough to ensure success in the automotive market. With a bumpy ride, stiff seating, and underwhelming performance, the Lark failed to resonate with consumers looking for a well-rounded compact car. Its shortcomings ultimately led to a decline in sales and a fading legacy, marking a challenging period for Studebaker. Number 3. The 1964 Triumph Herald was a compact car produced by the British manufacturer Triumph, designed to offer affordable transportation with a focus on simplicity. While it was praised for its innovative design features, the Herald ultimately fell short in key areas such as handling and cabin comfort, leaving many drivers dissatisfied. The Herald showcased a distinctive design featuring a clean and simple body style that appealed to some buyers. Its appearance was characterized by a sloping roofline and round headlights, giving it a somewhat charming look. However, the styling was not enough to compensate for its performance flaws, and it lacked the visual impact of competing models from the era. Inside, the Herald was utilitarian, with basic materials and a functional layout. While this simplicity was in line with its budget-friendly intent, it resulted in a minimalistic cabin that lacked the comfort and sophistication of other cars in its class. The seats were generally thin and offered limited support, which was especially noticeable on longer drives. Overall, the interior felt cramped and less inviting compared to rivals. The Herald was powered by a small 1.0-liter inline-4 engine, which produced modest power. While it was adequate for city driving, the engine struggled under load and when climbing hills, leading to frustrating performance on the road. Acceleration was sluggish, and many drivers found the car to be underwhelming when it came to merging onto highways or overtaking slower traffic. The Herald came with a 4-speed manual transmission with an optional automatic available. While the manual offered some engagement, it often felt imprecise, contributing to a less enjoyable driving experience. One of the most significant criticisms of the Herald was its poor handling characteristics. The suspension setup, which featured independent front suspension and a live rear axle, was not well tuned, leading to body roll and a lack of stability in corners. Drivers reported that the car felt unresponsive and vague when navigating turns, diminishing the overall driving experience and confidence behind the wheel. The ride quality of the Herald was another area of concern. While it was designed to be practical, the suspension struggled to absorb bumps effectively, resulting in a harsh ride over rough roads. Many owners found themselves bouncing around in the cabin, which detracted from the comfort of daily driving. Competing models like the Mini and Ford Anglia offered better handling, comfort, and performance, making it difficult for the Herald to carve out a niche in the crowded compact car market. As consumers became more discerning in their choices, the Herald's shortcomings became increasingly apparent, leading to a decline in its popularity. While the Herald had a dedicated fan base, it struggled to attract mainstream buyers who were looking for a well-rounded compact car. Its poor handling and minimal comfort limited its appeal, and it was often overshadowed by more capable rivals. The build quality of the Herald was often criticized, with reports of rust and reliability problems emerging as significant concerns for owners. While routine maintenance was generally straightforward, the prevalence of mechanical issues made ownership less enjoyable and more burdensome over time. Owners faced challenges with the reliability of various components, which could lead to unexpected repairs and added costs, further diminishing the car's appeal. The Herald's fuel economy was decent for its class, which appealed to budget-conscious buyers. However, its performance shortcomings meant that many drivers felt they were compromising too much for the sake of saving at the pump. The 1964 Triumph Herald is often remembered as a car that offered innovative design elements but ultimately fell short in critical areas such as handling and comfort. While it served a purpose in the compact car market, its shortcomings prevented it from becoming a beloved classic, and it remains a footnote in automotive history. The 1964 Triumph Herald serves as an example of how innovative design does not always translate into a successful product. With poor handling, minimal cabin comfort, and underwhelming performance, the Herald struggled to resonate with buyers looking for a compact car that met their needs. Its legacy is a reminder that even well-intentioned designs can miss the mark, especially when competing against more capable rivals in the automotive landscape. Number 2, the 1962 Ford Falcon was introduced as a compact car aimed at providing an economical and practical solution for American drivers. While it successfully targeted the budget-conscious market, it ultimately fell short in terms of performance and interior quality, leading to a mixed reception. The Falcon featured a simple, conservative design that was typical of early 1960s American cars. Its boxy shape and modest lines did little to stand out in a crowded market. While it was practical, the styling lacked the flair and excitement that consumers were beginning to crave, making it visually unremarkable compared to its competitors. The interior of the Falcon was bare bones and functional, focusing on cost-saving measures. While this simplicity appealed to some buyers, many found it lacking in comfort and amenities. The use of hard plastics and minimal padding resulted in a sparse cabin that felt cheap and uncomfortable. The dashboard was basic, lacking the modern features that were becoming standard in other compact cars. The Falcon was equipped with a 170 cubic inch 2.8-liter inline-six engine producing around 101 horsepower. While this engine was adequate for basic commuting, it provided sluggish acceleration, particularly when loaded with passengers or cargo. The car struggled to keep up with highway traffic, and merging onto busy roads was often a challenge due to its underpowered engine. The Falcon offered a 3-speed manual or a 2-speed automatic transmission. The manual transmission was functional but not particularly engaging, and the automatic option further dulled the driving experience by providing slow shifts and lackluster performance. The Falcon's handling was generally unremarkable, with a soft suspension setup that resulted in a lack of responsiveness when cornering. The car felt floaty and disconnected, which detracted from the overall driving experience. While it was designed for comfort, this approach compromised the sportier driving dynamics that many compact car buyers desired. The ride quality was a mixed bag, with the Falcon providing a comfortable experience on smooth roads but struggling on uneven surfaces. The suspension did little to filter out bumps, leading to a jarring ride that many drivers found unappealing. Competing models like the Chevrolet Corvair and Dodge Dart offered better performance, more comfortable interiors, and more advanced features, making them more attractive options for buyers. As consumers became more discerning, the Falcon's shortcomings became increasingly evident, leading to a decline in its popularity. While the Falcon carved out a niche among budget-conscious consumers, its lack of excitement and performance made it less appealing to those seeking a more engaging driving experience. The bare-bones interior did not help its case, as buyers began to expect more comfort and features in compact cars. The Falcon generally had a reputation for decent reliability, with many owners reporting few major issues. However, the use of cheaper materials meant that wear and tear were more pronounced over time. While routine maintenance was straightforward, some owners experienced issues with rust and corrosion, particularly in areas with harsh climates. The Falcon's fuel economy was one of its selling points, with many owners appreciating its ability to stretch a gallon of gas. However, the trade-off was sluggish performance, leading to mixed feelings among drivers. The lack of power made the Falcon less satisfying to drive, even if it saved money at the pump. The 1962 Ford Falcon is often viewed as a pioneer in the compact car segment, helping to establish the market for smaller vehicles in the United States. However, its bare-bones interior, sluggish acceleration, and overall lack of excitement contributed to a mixed legacy. The 1962 Ford Falcon aimed to deliver economical and practical transportation, but fell short in key areas such as performance and interior comfort. While it was a budget-friendly option for many, the lack of power, underwhelming driving dynamics, and basic interior left it vulnerable to competition in the rapidly evolving automotive landscape of the early 1960s. As consumers sought more engaging and comfortable options, the Falcon struggled to keep pace with the changing demands of the market. The 1968 Renault 10 was a compact car that aimed to provide a practical and affordable transportation option for consumers. However, it faced numerous challenges that hindered its popularity, including limited power, cramped interior space, and ventilation issues. The Renault 10 featured a simple and utilitarian design that emphasized function over form. While it had a modest appeal, its styling was often seen as unremarkable compared to its more visually dynamic contemporaries. The overall shape was boxy and lacked the sleek lines and curves that characterized many of the era's more popular models. The interior of the Renault 10 was notably tight, with limited legroom and headroom for both front and rear passengers. This cramped environment made longer journeys uncomfortable for occupants. The materials used in the cabin were basic and functional, lacking the refinement and quality that consumers were beginning to expect. Hard plastics and thin upholstery contributed to a cheap feel. The Renault 10 was powered by a 1.0-liter, 50-horsepower inline-4 engine, which was woefully underpowered for a car of its size. Acceleration was sluggish, and the car struggled to keep up with highway traffic, especially when fully loaded. The lack of power made merging onto busy roads and navigating steep inclines challenging, leading to frustration for drivers seeking a more spirited driving experience. The Renault 10 offered a 4-speed manual transmission that was adequate for basic driving, but often criticized for its lack of responsiveness. The automatic transmission option was available but did little to improve performance. The handling of the Renault 10 was generally uninspiring, with a soft suspension that prioritized comfort over sporty performance. This setup led to a floaty feel during cornering, which detracted from the overall driving experience. Drivers often found the steering to be vague and lacking in feedback, making it difficult to gauge the car's handling capabilities, particularly in more demanding driving conditions. While the Renault 10 was designed for comfort, its suspension failed to adequately absorb bumps and road imperfections. As a result, passengers often experienced a jarring ride, particularly on poorly maintained roads. The combination of a tight interior and inadequate ride comfort made for a less enjoyable driving experience, especially on longer trips. One of the notable drawbacks of the Renault 10 was its poor ventilation system. The design failed to provide adequate airflow to the cabin, leading to a stuffy and uncomfortable environment, particularly during hot weather. This lack of proper ventilation compounded the tightness of the interior, making the driving experience even less enjoyable for both the driver and passengers. The cramped interior, combined with hard seats and limited adjustment options, resulted in a discomforting ride experience. Long journeys were particularly taxing due to the lack of support and space. Competing models like the Volkswagen Beetle and Ford Escort offered better performance, more comfortable interiors, and improved reliability, making them more attractive options for buyers. The Renault 10 struggled to establish a strong foothold in the market, particularly in regions dominated by its more capable competitors. While the Renault 10 was marketed as an economical choice, its combination of limited power, cramped interior, and poor ventilation ultimately led to a lack of consumer enthusiasm. Many buyers sought out alternatives that provided a more balanced driving experience. The Renault 10 had a reputation for decent reliability, but its simplistic construction meant that some owners experienced issues over time, particularly with rust and wear on cheap interior materials. Routine maintenance was straightforward, but the lack of robust engineering led to some frustrations for owners who expected better longevity from their vehicles. The 1968 Renault 10 is often remembered as a utilitarian compact that failed to make a lasting impression. While it provided basic transportation, its shortcomings in power, comfort, and interior design prevented it from competing effectively in an increasingly competitive market. The 1968 Renault 10 aimed to deliver an economical and practical vehicle, but ultimately fell short in several key areas. Its tight interior, poor ventilation, and underpowered engine made it less appealing to consumers seeking a well-rounded compact car. As the automotive landscape evolved, the Renault 10 struggled to keep pace with the demands of buyers, leading to its decline in popularity and recognition.